After a startling call, Alex Ayala lashes out at Aryna Sabalenka. "You're not serious. Just a moment." It was merely an additional point. The next frenzy broke out. The line judge held up her hand. The audience fell silent. Ella went crazy. Her voice pierced through the tension like thunder as she said, "Are you kidding me?" Sabalenka grinned calmly and indifferently. Her eyes, however, sent a different message. This wasn't merely an argument. It was a proclamation. Whispers have trailed Ayala for months. Too raw, too young, too sentimental. However, she made the decision to stop swallowing it that evening. The stadium froze when she turned to face Sabalenka and said, "Say that again." No one was aware of it yet. However, this marked the start of a rivalry that would completely upend women's tennis. It was meant to be simply another match at night. The kind that begins with polite grins, cheers, and the gentle sound of tennis balls thudding beneath the lights. Alex Eala entered the court with her typical quiet assurance, purposeful and focused, but with a deeper secret. She had spent months anticipating this match. The crowd saw it as experience versus ambition as Aryna Sabalenka, the world #1, the powerhouse, and the symbol of supremacy, stood on the other side of the net, stretching, grinning, and exuding the kind of energy that says, "I own this place." However, there was more to it than that. Ella wasn't merely trying to score points. She was acting in a respectful manner. For the past year, she had battled to establish her top status. She was told repeatedly that her enthusiasm was a weakness, that she wasn't ready, and that she was too emotional. Her brilliance was evident in every headline, but it was unpolished. She was sick of that word tonight. Meanwhile, Sabalenka had just emerged from her own storm. She had something to defend after a series of difficult defeats and allegations of conflict in the locker room. Her throne, her image, and her power. Ayala wasn't just another rival in that regard. Before she could rise, she posed a threat to be squashed. Thunderous serves and vicious rallies kicked off the first set. The accuracy of Sabalenka's power meta. Neither of them was eager to flinch first, and each shot sounded like a declaration. The scoreboard ticked steadily, 33-44, till the strain was nearly intolerable. It was electrifying and thick in the air. Each point appeared to be more significant than it ought to be. Sabalenka looked across during the changeover and flashed that trademark smile that had crushed so many people's spirits in the past. Ella, however, did not turn away. She looked directly into that stare for the first time. Just fire, no hesitation, no fear. It was also felt by the pundits. "There's something different about Ayala tonight. She's not backing down," one of them said, and they were correct. There was a change in her. Something irreversible. The following point started as the audience leaned forward. And then the time would come. The one that would halt time, quiet the stadium, and ignite the match's defining debate. But that will happen later. Because there was still a fragile, quivering quiet before the storm, right before everything detonated. When it happened, the second set had just started. One long, grueling, and stunning rally. 23 shots. Refusing to blink, both players are chasing the lines. Every argument left the audience gasping and on their feet. Then the moment arrived, the one that would set everything on fire. Ayala hit a forehand down the line that was so accurate, clean, and sharp that it kissed the chalk. The audience burst out. Sabalenka froze. Everyone thought it was a winner for a heartbeat. The call-out came next. The voice of the line judge cut like a knife through the commotion. Confusion followed the cheers, and finally there was silence. Ayala halted in the middle of her stride, her chest heaving. Her gaze flicked to the target. A discernible trace of the ball had touched the white line's very edge. With a look of amazement on her face, she pointed at it. "That's in," she said, her voice breaking with passion. "That's definitely in." The chair umpire remained still. With a sneer on her lips, Sabalenka raised an eyebrow as she approached the net. "Just loud enough to be heard," she remarked. "Maybe check your aim next time." It was intended to be humorous. Or perhaps not. It was gasoline on fire, either way. Ayala lost her temper. "Are you serious at this moment? With a snap, she moved in closer. The ball was in. Calm and aloof, the umpire peered down. The call stands, Ayala. Play, please. The audience started whispering. Flashes clicked and phones were raised. Everyone sensed that something was falling apart. Ayala faced Sabalenka once more. Sabalenka shrugged, her gaze impassive. You saw it. Tell them it was in. Not my call, she smiled. She was broken by that smile. Ayala shouted, You can't be serious, and her voice reverberated throughout the arena. The expression, which sprang out of sheer annoyance, ignited the arena. The spectators gasped. Commentators fell silent. Even Sabalenka seems temporarily taken aback. Ayala was more angry than anyone had ever seen her. The audience had already taken sides when the umpire gave a warning for unsportsmanlike behavior. Half applauded the fire of the young underdog. Half booed, urging Sabalenka and poise. Grinning as if she had won more than a point, she made her way back to the baseline. But even she sensed the change on the inside. This Ayala was not the composed, orderly one she had previously encountered. This was a person who had snapped after too many silent humiliations and was fighting to be heard. Ayala's energy drastically altered once play resumed. Every movement was sharper, every stroke more forceful. She had stopped participating in the game. She was battling for acceptance and the right to be respected. Sabalenka observed that the rallies were getting shorter. The points became fights. IA broke serve at 3-2 with a shout that seemed to cut through the cacophony. The audience let forth a roar. It was impossible to miss the fire in her eyes. However, Sabalenka used her experience to slow down the game, break the pace, and take her time between points just as it appeared that she had turned things around. Every time she paused, she would look at Ayala with the same taunt and smirk, making the tension between them more intimate. What had begun as a poor decision turned into a conflict between pride, ego, and willpower. It was the most thrilling moment of the game, according to commentators, not because of the outcome but rather because of what was revealed. An umpire's stillness that altered everything, a champion's provocation, and a young player's breaking point. Long after the game was over, one call, just one word, became the focal point of a storm. Because something greater than tennis had started in that moment. A conflict, a declaration, a boundary between eras rather than in the court. The stadium was a hive of activity by the end of the game. Sabalenka persevered because of her experience, even though Alex Eala had fought until the very end. The handshake was icy, a quick touch of fingers, and the eyes were fiery and bitter. Every frame was captured by cameras, and the world saw it in a matter of minutes. Before the players had even entered the locker room, videos were all over social media. Alice lashes out at Sabalenka. You're not serious. The fury that rocked Dubai. The headlines were ruthless. However, the fans were also. My fans came together on one side to stand up for her. She is correct. The ball was in. She was robbed by the umpire. Passion does not equate to contempt. It's necessary for tennis. Her fans clipped slowly. Motion replays of the ball mark, illustrating their argument with circles around the faint chalk dust. Tennis was no longer the only thing. It was about a young player who dared to question the hierarchy and about justice. However, Sabalenka's supporters were equally boisterous. She became uncontrollable. A professional doesn't act that way. You don't belong here if you can't manage pressure. Ayala was even accused by some of creating drama to maintain her relevance. A claim that hurt more than any defeat. Aryna Sabalenka, meanwhile, was the first to speak up. It's tennis. Sometimes emotions take over. I've been there too, but you've got to stay composed, she added with a slight smile during her post-match news conference. Although the remark appeared poised and even elegant, it was painful. It seemed like counsel from a veteran to many. Others saw it as courtesy disguised as disdain. Later, in a more subdued setting, Ayala, still readied from the match, said. She whispered, I just wanted fairness. No one was being disrespected by me. I was unable to keep quiet. Just that sentence became a platform-wide rallying cry. All I wanted was for fairness to become popular overnight. Her remarks were transformed by fans into quotations, images, and even TikTok modifications. However, criticism followed every share, and reaction followed every defense. Journalists covering tennis started analyzing every aspect of the call. Some said it was impossible to see the ball well due to the umpire's stance. Others felt that while the call was right, the response wasn't. Additionally, both players remained silent, at least in public, during all the commotion. Insiders whispered behind closed doors that there was more friction between Ayala and Sabalenka than just that one call. A sarcastic remark in the corridor days earlier, a stare down during warm-ups. Piece by piece, it all started to come to light. Perhaps the cause wasn't the call. Perhaps it was a spark on a stack of petrol that was about to catch fire. The scene grew legendary as the hours stretched into days, and it was reenacted, examined, and exaggerated. You can't become a meme in 2 words. Everyone knew the narrative wasn't finished, and as the internet debated, Ayala's expression from that night, a mixture of anger, astonishment, and heartbreak, started to haunt the sports discourse. It would be more than a match the next time these two crossed paths. It would be private. Silence was more powerful than any interview in the days that followed. Alex vanished from the public eye. No statements, tweets, or press. Just quiet. However, you are no longer protected by quiet. All it does is give the world time to construct its own narrative. Her rant was repeatedly aired on sports talk stations. Every move, phrase, and glance between her and Sabalenka was examined by analysts. The moment she lost control, the cost of immaturity, was referred to as the breakdown. Few people dared to publicly express their admiration for her fire, while others silently predicted that it would haunt her early career. Sabalenka's camp, meanwhile, maneuvered precisely. The story was written by her PR team. Despite the turmoil, Aryna remained collected, professional, and calm. They published excellent training videos. Laughing, grinning, and exuding confidence. She appeared unflinching, unfazed, and triumphant. It was an image control masterclass. And it was successful. The headlines gradually changed. Sabalenka sets an example for the next generation with her poise. And the weight of IA's silence increased with each headline. IA played the game 100 times inside her tiny Madrid apartment. She heard the audience, saw the call, and saw the ball hit the line frame by frame. Her memory was scarred by every detail. That evening, she lost more than just a point. She was no longer given the benefit of the doubt. She experienced the cruelty of perception for the first time. Her coach attempted to dissuade her. She shook her head, saying, "Let it go, Alex. This will pass." "No, it won't," she muttered. "Not until I confront her once more." Because that one call was no longer the focus. It has to do with how fast the world changed. How a moment of candor could be turned into conceit. How a young woman's expression of emotion might be exploited against her. The fine followed. A $5,000 fine for using foul language while playing. Although it wasn't very severe, it felt like yet another setback and a reminder that she had been branded. The Federation made a succinct statement. "We maintain the highest standards of behavior." For Ayala, however, it was like a stone-carved sentence. Her supporters retaliated more forcefully on social media. By contrasting her response with that of male players who had performed worse but received less punishment, they exposed double standards. Timelines were overrun with footage of legendary outbursts, rackets being broken, and umpires being yelled at. However, Ayala was the one who was deemed impolite in some way. Then Sabalenka posted something that rekindled the storm just as it appeared to be fading. One picture on Instagram. A smirk, a practice court. The caption is always somber. Everyone knew exactly who it was directed at, even though there were no tags or mentions. The comments section blew up. "She is engaging in trolling. Actions of a queen. I adore it, but it's petty." Ayala noticed it. She didn't block her, didn't comment, and didn't enjoy it. "Next time, let's see who's serious," she said as she continued to stare at it for a considerable amount of time while maintaining a steady pulse and tight jaw. That evening, she went back to the court. Just her, a bucket of balls, and the sound of her own breathing. No cameras, no crowd. Every serve cracked more loudly than the previous one. Every forehand cut became more precise. Knowing that this was no longer practice, her coach silently observed from the corner. This was preparation for a reckoning rather than another tournament, since every storm needs to subside before it resumes. Furthermore, Alexa's quiet was not a sign of weakness. It sounded like someone honing her retaliation. Weeks went by. New tales and conflicts emerged on the internet. For Alex Eala, however, the noise never quite subsided. It simply sank more into the silent recesses of her thoughts. She heard memories of that evening every time she worked out. "You're not serious." Sabalenka's sneer, the umpire's disinterest, and the muttering of the crowd. She was unable to break free from the rerun. However, in the right hands, suffering turns into fuel. Ayala was also learning how to burn silently. Her coach was the first to notice the change. The weak serves, the defensive rallies, and the shy looks were all gone. Every ball was now hit with intention, and every motion was harder, smoother, and sharper. She had stopped playing to prove herself. She was pretending to be respectful. Her weapon was the emotional flame that used to make her unstable. Sophisticated, regulated, and perilous. Then came the news that would change everything once more. When the Miami tournament draw was made public a few weeks later, fate nearly chose to hold a repeat. Aryna Sabalenka versus Alex Eala. 16th round. The world of tennis froze. Instantly, social media lighted up. Once more, here we go. A's payback. Is Sabalenka able to remain composed under duress? The hashtags poured in. Both Ayala and the internet remembered. However, she didn't post anything this time. There was only one picture on her story. No quotations, statements, or interviews. The excitement was palpable on match day, with her racket prepared and taped, captioned, "Let's finish what we started." A mixture of interest and suspense pervaded the stadium. People desired anarchy. They desired an encore of rage, a rematch of feelings. Ayala, however, entered in a different way. Even Sabalenka was startled by the silence, which lacked any evident intensity or glare. The warm-up was excessively quiet. Even the usually chatty Sabalenka remained silent. Perhaps she sensed it as well. The shift in the atmosphere. Ayala had changed from the girl who yelled, "You can't be serious." She was quieter and colder now, yet you could still sense the storm beneath her skin. A didn't hold back as the play started.